You taught yourself to feel nothing. Not by accident. Not overnight. But slowly, and deliberately, until silence became your comfort, and numbness became your shield. What once stirred your soul now barely moves your mind. What once burned inside you like fire, vision, hunger, purpose, now flickers like a forgotten candle in a dark room. You weren't always like this. There was a time you felt everything. You feared dishonor. You cherished restraint. You dreamed of rising above yourself, not drowning in what felt good for a moment, but building what would last forever. That version of you was real. He had something rare. Discipline. Direction. Dignity. But over time the world chipped away at him. You were told to chase pleasure like it was truth. You were told desire should never be denied, that indulgence was your right, and that discipline was some old relic, something for monks, not modern men. You started to believe that resisting was weakness and surrender was strength. And so, you let go. First, of small things. Then, of things that once defined you. The line you once drew in the sand, the one between who you are and who you refuse to become, blurred then vanished. Now, you don't even remember where the line was. But here's the part no one told you: the cost of letting go isn't paid in a moment. It's paid in what you slowly become. You didn't just lose discipline, you lost a path. You didn't just give in to comfort, you gave up potential. You didn't just feel nothing, you became someone else entirely. And yet, you still ask yourself in quiet moments, who would I have been, if I held the line? That question haunts because it matters. Because somewhere in you that disciplined man is still alive. Waiting. Watching. And ready to rise again. Before the world whispered its lies into your ears, before the flood of distraction and desire pulled you under, there was another version of you. A quieter one. But stronger. A man who lived not for the next thrill, but for something deeper, something eternal. He valued clarity over chaos. He measured his worth not by how much he could consume, but by how much he could control. That man wasn't perfect, but he had direction. He had standards. And he honored them, not because someone was watching, but because he was. But somewhere along the way, that man was buried. Not with a shovel, but with choices. One compromise at a time. A late-night scroll here, a fleeting indulgence there. Each decision seemed harmless. Each escape, justified. Until the day came when you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the reflection. Not because your face had changed, but because your spirit had. What once made you feel powerful, discipline, restraint, conviction, now felt foreign, maybe even foolish. You became a man of appetite instead of aim. You traded strength for sensation. And in doing so, you silenced the part of you that once knew who he was. But that part of you hasn't died, it's only been forgotten. He still lingers in the corners of your conscience, whispering reminders in your loneliest moments. You hear him when you lie awake at night, wondering why success feels empty, why pleasure feels hollow, why you still feel lost even when you've gotten everything you thought you wanted. He doesn't yell. He doesn't shame. He waits, with quiet strength, for you to remember. Because he knows the truth you've tried to forget: you were not born to chase pleasure. You were born to build something greater than yourself. This is the forgotten self, the disciplined self. The one who still believes in purpose, in God, in truth. The one who knows that real power isn't found in indulgence, it's forged in resistance. He's waiting for you to stop numbing and start remembering. And once you do, you'll realize he never left. He was simply buried under the weight of who the world told you to become. They told you that pleasure was freedom. That you could measure your worth by how often you satisfied your cravings. That to say yes to every desire was a sign of strength, and to say no was repression. It sounded liberating at first. No rules, no restraints, just the sweet release of doing whatever felt good in the moment. They made it look heroic, a celebration of self, of autonomy, of being real. But it was never freedom. It was a trap dressed up as liberation. And you walked into it with open arms, never questioning what you were leaving behind. Because every time you chose pleasure over principle, you paid a price. Not immediately. Not visibly. But quietly, deep inside. The discipline you abandoned didn't scream, it simply stepped back. The clarity you once had blurred, replaced by a haze of indulgence that left you constantly chasing the next fix. The more you gave in, the more you needed. And still, you felt emptier than ever. That's the great lie: pleasure promises fulfillment, but it delivers emptiness. It numbs you just enough to keep you from noticing how far you've fallen. You started to mistake the release of tension for happiness, the escape from pain for peace. But these moments of pleasure, cheap, fast, and forgettable, were never designed to satisfy you. They were designed to enslave you. To keep you distracted, dependent, and docile. And slowly, you became exactly what they wanted: a man with no direction, no mission, no fight. A man who feels nothing deeply, because he's drowned himself in shallow things. But what if the real freedom was never in indulging, but in resisting? What if every no you say to temptation is a yes to your future? What if the path back to strength doesn't begin with feeling good, but with feeling everything you've been avoiding? Pleasure is not the enemy, but worshipping it is. You were not built to bow to your desires. You were built to master them. This world wasn't built to make you wise, it was built to make you weak. The systems that surround you aren't accidental. They are calculated, engineered, designed not to elevate your soul, but to exhaust your attention. Every scroll, every ad, every suggested for you, is part of a machine that feeds on your focus and trades your discipline for dopamine. You think you're choosing what to watch, what to click, what to want, but you're not. You're being guided. Nudged. Programmed by algorithms that know your mind better than you do. And they don't care about your future. They care about your engagement. Influencers shout about hustle. Brands sell you discipline in a bottle, in a journal, in a course. They speak the language of growth while selling you the tools of addiction. Even the things that claim to help you evolve are often just another distraction, wrapped in the disguise of productivity. You're not being shown the path to mastery. You're being kept comfortably busy, while your deeper calling quietly dies in the background. And worst of all, they've convinced you that you're alone. That brotherhood is weakness. That other men are your competition, not your allies. So you isolate yourself, pretending solitude is strength, while your mind becomes a battlefield of silent wars. You were never meant to fight alone. You were never meant to carry all this weight by yourself. But the modern trap tells you otherwise. It tells you to chase money without mission, pleasure without purpose, validation without virtue. And then it wonders why men are angry, lost, numb, and broken. But deep down, you already know. You feel the lie every time you wake up tired, not from lack of sleep, but from lack of meaning. You feel it every time you stare at your screen hoping it will give you a reason to get up and go. The modern trap doesn't imprison your body. It poisons your will. It doesn't chain your hands. It dulls your fire. And unless you recognize it for what it is, a slow erosion of who you were meant to become, you'll continue to mistake comfort for peace, and noise for truth. There comes a point when you stop asking, what feels good, and start asking, what is good for me? That shift, subtle, but seismic, is the beginning of your return. Not to who you were, but to who you were always meant to become. Discipline isn't punishment. It isn't cold or cruel. It's a quiet form of self-respect. It's choosing to protect your future at the cost of your present comfort. And for a man who has been lost in the fog of indulgence and distraction, that choice is revolutionary. They told you to follow your desires. But what they never told you is that desire has no end. The more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. It's a fire that doesn't warm, it devours. Discipline is the hand that controls that flame. It doesn't kill desire, it refines it. Shapes it. Gives it purpose. Without discipline, desire rules you. With it, you master yourself. This is not about becoming hard or emotionless. It's about becoming whole. It's about remembering that true masculinity isn't in domination, it's in direction. The disciplined man doesn't chase. He builds. He doesn't consume, he creates. He doesn't follow every urge, he leads them towards something greater. And this return? It doesn't require money. It doesn't need followers or applause. It begins in silence, in solitude, in the decision to say no when everything inside you screams yes. It begins when you wake up early, not because you're told to, but because you refuse to waste another day being less than you could be. It begins when you stop numbing your pain and start confronting it. When you stop blaming the world and start reclaiming responsibility. Because the truth is, the world will not reward your return. Not immediately. It's easier to sell to the broken than to the whole. But you didn't come back for approval. You came back for alignment, with your purpose, with your Creator, with your highest self. And as the world continues to seduce men into softness, your resistance becomes your rebellion. In an age of impulse, your discipline is your weapon. In an age of vanity, your humility is your armor. In an age of noise, your silence becomes your strength. This is how it begins. Not with a battle cry, but with a quiet decision: I will not waste myself anymore.